Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another Milsurp Monday video. In today's Milsurp Monday video, we're going to be taking a look at the awesome Ishapore 2A1 rifle. Now, if you've never seen the Ishapore 2A1 before, some of you Enfield collectors out there are going to immediately spot the difference, and the easiest way to tell that it is an Ishapore 2A1 is the magazine. So the magazine here is actually going to be squared off, unlike the standard Mark III Enfield that has a somewhat rounded 10-round detachable magazine. The Ishapore 2A1 is actually going to be chambered in 7.62 by 51 NATO. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Enfield series, they are phenomenal military surplus rifles that have been used for decades and have served in many conflicts all throughout the world. But this rifle in particular was actually not used by the British military forces. It was used in India, and that's where it was actually created. These rifles were actually rebuilt, not just rebored out for 308. They were rebuilt and re-arsenaled for 7.62 by 51 NATO starting in 1963. So this is actually a somewhat newer production rifle than many of the Enfields that are out there on the market today, especially the Mark III Enfield. This rifle in particular, you can see our date stamp here right underneath the bolt handle. That date stamp is going to read 1966. It's going to be RFI marked, and you can see right on top of that it says 7.62 millimeter 2A1, signifying that it's an Ishapore 2A1. It is going to be all matching, which is pretty cool. And then also, as you can see on the left side of the receiver, we have India marked. I have outfitted this rifle with a traditional Mark III sling. This is going to function identically to a Mark III Enfield. Pretty much all of the parts are going to be about the same. You're going to see a difference in the rear sight here with the distance that the rear sight can go out to, and then you're also going to see your RFI marking there. Now, the stock set itself was reused from a traditional Mark III Enfield. I would imagine that the Indian military forces had a bunch of those lying around. They were able to salvage the stocks. Now, the one thing I will say about a lot of the Ishapores that you do see on the market, generally speaking, these stock sets are not in great shape. As you can see, this one is in pretty poor shape as far as the amount of oil that is soaked into the wood of the stock. In fact, it's pretty much black. It has like a purplish color to it all around. The butt plate here is an aluminum butt plate, and you can see again the fit and finish there for the butt plate in the stock is not too great. There is some kind of chips coming out there, but I will assure you guys that this rifle shoots phenomenally. I've never done much running and gunning with a military surplus bolt action rifle, but I made sure to do that in today's video. I had the range all to myself and I could not resist. It was an absolute blast. But aside from the stock being somewhat beat up, what you'll generally see on these rifles is that the actual condition of the bore is damn near 100%. Generally, the forces that had these did a really good job at maintaining the internals of the firearm. I found that when shooting this rifle at 25 yards, it was pretty much stacking it in the same hole. Now, I know that that's only 25 yards, but I would imagine that at 50 or 100 yards, it's going to do the same thing. The rifle just freaking shoots. It will have your traditional Mark III style bolt, so it is a cock on close action, and it's just going to allow you to cycle the action extremely fast. If you're familiar with traditional military doctrine for British forces, you'll be familiar with the mad minute drill. And in order to do this drill, it was simply firing a certain amount of rounds in a given minute. And how they accomplished this was to hold the bolt in a somewhat non-traditional way. And I am by no means an expert at this method, but I found that at the range, if you do it a couple times, you can actually start laying down some fire pretty freaking quick. Now, at the range, I did notice that my extractor is starting to go bad. What would happen is I would go to cycle the action and it just would not kick the empty brass out as far as I would like it to. It was kind of just plopping out the side of the gun, and at times I would have to flip the gun over to get the spent casing out so that way I could properly chamber the next round. That's really not too big of a deal, but it is something to note that on these rifles, some parts may or may not be reused from original Mark IIIs, and you may want to start replacing them if you do plan on shooting this rifle a lot. This magazine, just like the Mark III, is detachable. Your magazine release button is going to be right in front of the trigger. If you go ahead and press that up, it'll allow you to remove your magazine. They did not see this as a way to reload the gun. The only reason you would have taken this magazine out was in actually cleaning or doing any sort of maintenance on the firearm. If you were reloading the gun, this magazine would have stayed in place and you would have loaded it from the top utilizing stripper clips. But this is a slightly higher capacity magazine than the stock Mark III magazine. This magazine is actually a 12-round magazine for 7.62x51 NATO. So unfortunately, you guys up in New York and any of those other banned states, it sounds kind of funny to say, but this rifle would not be compliant with this magazine in your states. I am so sorry to say that. This magazine itself is in somewhat rough shape. It has been used. The magazine retention is very, very light, but it still works just fine and the rounds load just fine. Moving back on the rifle, I will say the trigger is pretty freaking phenomenal. It is a 2-stage trigger. We have a little bit of take up, but you get actually a pretty crisp wall and then a smooth, clean break. Right about there. You will have your safety on the opposite side, just like a standard Mark III. If you rotate this safety all the way to the rear, that is going to be in the safe position, and it also will lock the action of the rifle. As you can see, since I used the standard British Enfield sling on this rifle, you are going to see a lot of parts from the Mark III that are interchangeable with this Ishapore 2A1. You can switch out stock sets, and obviously, as you can see here, you can put on aftermarket accessories like a sling or a bayonet. I really do like the fact that this rifle is chambered in 308 or 7.62x51 because ammunition availability is awesome. You can find military surplus 7.62x51 in pretty much whatever shop you want to go into. In this range session, we were shooting this German military surplus brass case ammunition, and this shot great. I had no issues at the range. This stuff pretty much shoots like match grade ammo for an extremely good price. I actually picked this up on sale for $6.99 a box for 20 rounds. 303 is still a very cool round, but it's just a little bit tougher to find and definitely more expensive than 308. So if you were looking to get your hands on a Mark III, but you didn't want to deal with the expensiveness of the ammunition and still wanted a cool, correct rifle that was chambered in 7.62, this is a great choice for an awesome shooter at the range. Now, the interesting thing about this rifle, it was actually the last bolt-action rifle that was issued on a mass scale to standard troops. Obviously, nowadays, we still utilize bolt-action rifles. This was the last rifle that was actually issued for reserves and standard troops to go out into battle with, which is pretty insane considering all of the other options that we had during the early and late 1960s and early 1970s. There were about 500,000 of these made, and actually some are still being used in reserve units all throughout the world. So you will see not a ton available on the US market, but they are out there. If you did want to buy one, you're looking at prices anywhere from $400 to $450. Sometimes if ones are in very rough shape and the bores don't look too good, you may be able to get lucky and grab one for about $350. But guys, be aware, just like all other military surplus rifles, the prices are continuing to go up. So if you do want to get your hands on one of these rifles, I would recommend buying one sooner rather than later. That's pretty much going to wrap this video up, guys. I had a blast shooting this rifle at the range, and I hope you guys enjoyed seeing it on screen. If you have any other questions regarding this rifle, please feel free to throw them down below in the comment section, and you guys know I always absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, check out the description and head to the Firearm Freedom Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram account. We do daily posts on all three of those, and we do 2 live streams a week on the Instagram, so be sure to give those a follow. You're not going to want to miss that. While you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you don't miss out on any of the awesome content we have coming out here on the YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.